enduring hardships, the tears of pain I shed today will be the tears of joy I shed tomorrow. I'm Coach mjdtiger, certified life coach and mentor, and we are on this journey together to find peace, passion, and purpose by enduring hardships and not getting knocked down and staying there, but to rise and to be more than we were the moment before and to grow in the next moment. And we can do that by focusing on our self-love, self-respect, self-control, and to bravely and boldly embrace who we are unconditionally. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up. How are you feeling? How are you feeling in your mind? How are you feeling in your body? How are you feeling in your heart? How are you feeling in your soul? Taking a moment each day to think in silence and to address each of these areas is a daily healthy practice that will lead you to your passion and your purpose and to balance you out every single day. When we ask ourselves through mind, body, heart, and soul how we are feeling, we get the answers we need and we know we need to focus on. How are you feeling? Trust yourself. Trust that you have it within you to get through the next moment. Trust that whatever is beyond your control, whatever is beyond the reach and the scale of where your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul can endure in this moment, trust that what's beyond you doesn't matter. What's behind you doesn't matter. What matters is this moment. Trust that you are strong enough to endure the next moment, the next obstacle, the next test, the next mountain, the next volcano. Trust yourself that you are making the right decisions and that you will stand tall and bravely and boldly endure the consequences of those decisions. Trust yourself that you are more than what your limited beliefs are telling you. Trust yourself that you are capable of being in a loving, healthy, non-toxic relationship. Trust yourself that you are everything you know you were born to be. Trust yourself that you will go further than you ever imagined through discipline, self-love, and self-control. You are here now. Trust yourself. Wheat Horizons, Episode 5, The Blank Journal. We all in life want and expect at certain points in our lives to have clean slates, so to speak. In this case, blank journals. Journaling, in its own context, is obviously a beneficial thing that we do, each and every one of us, if we want to do them, I should say, to release out of us into reality something physical. You're taking your mind, your thoughts, the stories, the things you say in your brain, and you're putting them to paper or to an electronic device, is what I usually do for my journaling. I usually use my phone, and then I'll translate the best of my journal entries into a private journal. But it's making these thoughts physical, because even though they are physical, because our thoughts are in our brain, which is a physical thing, it's in our body. Our bodies are physical, but to have them exit and be something that we can read, that was in our mind, and we can travel back to that. It's exactly like a time capsule. You can go back and look at it and say, wow, that's what I was thinking at that time. That's how I felt at that time. And it's very interesting, because a lot of these experiences that we have in life, they often go unchecked because we have no way of documenting them in the moment. If you think back in the day before cameras was out, and you want to see something interesting, go and Google the very first camera image ever taken, the very first picture ever taken with a camera. That's just a fun side piece. Just go and Google, just type in first picture ever taken with a camera, and look at that image, and just think about before that image, what did people do to document visually? They had to draw. You had to manifest into reality in drawings and writings and cave paintings. And we have the ability now, as modern humans, to get our thoughts out of us and into reality in the physical form in so many different ways that it's mind-blowing. Anything that we think, we can come up with so many different creative ways of expressing what we feel and what we're thinking. With a blank journal, I always envision my day, every single day, in reverse. Instead of putting things on the paper, I'm writing the journal in my mind. I'm taking what I've already learned, what I already know what's on paper, and I'm saying, I am the blank journal, not the piece of paper. Because oftentimes, and we're all guilty of this, how many times have we written down something just to forget what we wrote, never go back and read it, and when we do go back and read it, it just reads like gibberish. Means nothing. There's no emotional attachment to it, because you are not that person who wrote those words. You are not the person who thought those thoughts. You are not the person who felt those feelings. You are different. So at some point, we have to understand that the journaling, at least for me, when I journal, the journaling is not something that is to be forgotten. It is something that is to be put into the physical form. And almost every single thing that I journal, I reduce it down to something small, which usually ends up being my social media posts. They all come from my journaling. And all the rest of it, I put a big X through it. It means absolutely little to me. I wouldn't say nothing. It means little, because all the other stuff is filler. What we're really trying to get down to is, just as we are in life, when you have to be direct and assertive, we have to be direct and assertive about what it is. After we journal, what are some things we can highlight to say, that's something I need to pay attention to. This is something that's reoccurring. This is a weakness. This is a strength. And how can I make myself a blank journal? What do I mean by that? I start every morning with a check-in. How are you feeling? Mind, body, heart, and soul. That would be the title of my day. That would be the title of my journal. And throughout the day, I start to write my story, my thoughts and my comments, but they're in my head. And they're all based on being conscious and in the moment. And these are things that take discipline to do. And it's not something you sit around all day thinking about. It's just something that kind of holds you accountable when you're interacting throughout the day with people, places, and things. If I treat myself as a blank journal, I need to be very careful what I write in it. Just as when we write in a journal, you are vulnerable, but you're also safe, because I'm writing down some very vulnerable things, but I'm the only one who's going to read this. In most cases, unless we allow someone to read it, there's nothing safer than writing down your own thoughts in a journal. But what if we can get that same sensation with being safe with ourselves, with creating what is, so to speak, a journal within ourselves? And I think of myself like that every day. I'm like, I'm just a blank journal. Every day, there's nothing that's happened yet. I'm chronicling and creating as I go, and I'm documenting the best parts. And what I end up doing is, when something keeps sticking and reoccurring that day, I'm like, there's the theme of the day. Let me write that down. And then I actually go to my real journal on my phone, and I'll start writing down, this is reoccurring today. This feeling is reoccurring. I do this every single day. And it's something that I've developed over the last year or so, and it's really starting to come into discipline now, where I do this without even thinking about it, where I'm just constantly writing my story for the day. And I'm not trying to control anything. The goal is for it to be natural. But the goal is also to come back and say, okay, if I know I said something to someone that I probably is going to regret later on that day, it immediately goes into the journal. If I say something that I feel was profound, it goes in the journal. If I say something that I think it was silly, it goes in the journal. Anything that I think should be a focal point, good, bad, and ugly, that I need to remember later on that day, it goes in that journal. And it's not a big paragraph. It's just a sentence. You said this to this person. Maybe you should listen a little better next time. You did this to this person. Maybe you should have helped them a little more. And those are the negatives. And then the positives. You did great at this point with this particular activity. How can we improve upon it? Because you did great with that. Now just improve upon it. Or I did this with my son. He learned a lot from this. What else can I do to improve in this area? And these are the things that kind of keeps me aligned with what I intentionally wanted to do that day anyway, which was create an awesome day. Create a victorious day. Small victory to wake up, and then you get going with your check-in, and then you start creating. You start creating your story for that day, because you are the blank journal. You are creating every single day exactly what you would be writing in that journal. But it starts with you. It doesn't start with the journal. You are the journal. The journal is just something that is holding your thoughts. So what are we going to write? If we already know ahead of time that we're going to write this thing, we can do some things. Like I can say to myself, hey, I don't want so much negative in my journal today. I want some positives, damn it. What can I do to get some positives in this journal? What can I do to turn this around? I can do this. I don't have to look forward to the journal as being some kind of depressing activity. This journal entry could be fun. Look what I did today. Yeah, this sucked, but I'm going to apologize to this person tomorrow. I'm going to forgive this person tomorrow. I'm going to pat myself on the back for something that I did that was great for me. It may not look great for everyone else, but you know what? I don't live my life for everyone else. I live my life for me. Outcomes. That is the whole point of journaling. What are the outcomes that we're getting, and how can we communicate those things to ourselves first? Because if we're not identifying these outcomes as positive or negative, what is the point of all of it? If we're not going to do anything with the journal, then what is the point of writing in it? The whole point is to do something, and it may mean something different from one person to the next. But the important part is, if we don't initiate that mindset, then the journal entry is just as detached from you as your discipline is, because there is none there. The point of journaling and getting these thoughts out is it means to be conscious every day about what you're doing. It is a tool to literally hold you accountable and make you own up to what you're doing, because you know you have to face the journal. And it's almost like facing a coach or facing someone of authority. And who wants to meet the journal that day and say, I got to write down all this stuff today that I did that I knew was not good, and I did it anyway. If we hold ourselves accountable in that way every single day, Because again, everyone has different journals. There's people who have goals in their journal where it says, how much did you eat today? How much activity did you have? And if you didn't do those things, going to that journal can be very intimidating. So what happens? Well, I won't go to the journal today. I'll wait till tomorrow where I do a better job, and then I'll do the day before where I didn't do it, and I'll just say, well, it's okay to put that in there because today I did a great job. Problem is that you still consciously did not do anything that other day. And most likely you're not going to do anything the day after this great day you had, because you're still patting yourself on the back for having accomplished something, which is nothing wrong with that. But that is not discipline. That is disjointed and it's full of excuses. If you can't do one thing, you replace it with another. If I can't run one day, then I'm going to be making a podcast in that place. Nothing is empty. That's discipline. It's not so much about the activity, it's about the devotion of time. And if you can devote time to doing something positive every single day that you know benefits you, or take away from something every day that you know doesn't benefit you, if there's something unhealthy that you're doing and you're continuing to do it every single day consciously, I mean, what can you do other than say, hey, I'm literally making a choice to do something unhealthy for myself every single day, but I can't stop because I don't have the discipline to rid myself of it. And I am guilty of it as anybody else. We all are. We all have that one thing or a couple of things that is extremely hard to kick the habit of, but we do it every single day because it brings us comfort. And we make excuses for it because it brings us comfort. I challenge you to look beyond that. We talked about in the previous episode, looking beyond where you think you should stop. And we're not talking about physically or some activity. We're talking about in all aspects of your life. There's a horizon beyond what we believe to be the end of the horizon. There's more. But we have to move to get there. You can't see the rest of the horizon if you're standing still and not doing anything. One of the things I love about journaling is that not only can you just write down your thoughts and who you are, but it gives you a chance to expand upon those thoughts. What do they really mean? Because in our minds, we go through loops. Things reoccur. They come around like boomerangs over and over and over again. But we could write that down one time. That boomerang that came back in our mind 100 times, suddenly we can read it once and say, well, what does that mean? Brainstorm off of it and see what we can do to attack it, to fix some things, to change some things up. And remind ourselves that whatever it is that needs to be changed, it won't be easy. But what is easy if it's worth changing something for the positive in your life? Oftentimes it is hard because we want it. One of the things about life is that we often want what we can't have. We desire who, what, and where we can't have. The things that we can have and we can do, it's almost like they're invisible to us. So we ignore them and we skip over things that are essentially the things that we should be focusing on because we're too busy looking at the bigger stuff that we can't obtain. But that just makes us want it more. Being able to get your thoughts about those things that we want more down into reality and something physical and start asking ourselves questions about it. We often find that there's other things attached to these things that we want. And a lot of times those attachments, obviously, they're anchored within us. There's something that we're missing, something we're desiring to have, and it can go both ways. But the ultimate thing is like, what are you going to do about it? You know, our minds preoccupy ourselves daily with things that we can't have, people we can't see, and places we can't go. And to reel it all in, I've noticed when I'm journaling, it keeps me in the moment. It keeps me from thinking too far ahead. Again, anxiety in its purest form is worrying about something that is out of your control, that hasn't even transpired yet. And there's events that are going to happen in between that you would never have thought of that will affect it. But you're already focused on something as if you have all the answers about said outcome in the future. journaling for me, and again, I'm mentioning journaling. I think, the whole point of Wheat Horizons, again, we'll talk about exactly what Wheat Horizons truly means to me in episode 14 when we do the title podcast of this color wave. This is the valley. This is the point where you slow down and you think. And when you slow down and you think, journaling is amazing when it comes to that. And journaling doesn't always have to be just writing with words. I often sometimes will journal with drawing. I like to draw. I like to do digital paintings, but I did something different. And this is something, again, as you start to unlock things in your life, and I've been adding journaling in more because it really has been helping me keep me in the moment. But as you open up new doors, you realize sometimes in those new doors that you're opening up, they're not new doors. They're actually old doors that have just been replaced. Because when you walk into the room, it's actually the same old room. It's just a new door. You didn't recognize the room because of the new door. And that's something interesting to me that I've dove into, because my mother and I were talking, and I loved to draw when I was younger. And I had sketch pads. And I would draw on them all the time. And she says, "When was the last time you bought a sketch pad?" And I'm like, I don't know. I guess when I was like in college, like 21, 22, 23 years old, maybe 25, 26. That might be the latest that I actually, with discipline, every day drew in a sketch pad with just a pen. And before I got into digital media, now I do digital paintings. So ever since she said that, I started thinking, that was a huge part of my life, those sketch pads. And just like when I have recently solved the Rubik's Cube. It's something that I've been wanting to do for my entire life. I've always had a Rubik's Cube. I've always tried to attempt to solve it. I'm 42 years old and I finally solved it. And I figured out the algorithm, and now I can solve it within 25 minutes. And I'm trying to get my time down. That's the whole point. People always ask, you solved it and now you're going to break it apart and start all over again? Yes, because the whole point is not to just sit there and stare at the solved puzzle. Now it's, how fast can I solve it? And I love that about that cube. That's what I always wanted. It was never about solving it. It's about how fast can I figure out how to solve it. I don't want to just figure it out once. I want to do it over and over and over again. That's the whole point. Is that life, and I'm going back to these sketch pads, is that I bought myself a sketch pad, and I haven't bought one in years. And I bought a couple of ink pens, and now I'm back into the mode of when I realized back then that was my journal. I would draw out things, what my mood was, I would draw on my sketch pad. And I realized that was my form of journaling for decades. It's one of the things that helped me after my father died. I would draw. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, why did I do that so much? And I realized because it has the same emotional effect I have now when I write in a journal, or I type into my journal on my phone, or on my Chromebook. These things are the exact same thing. It's not about the tool. It's not about the Chromebook, the phone, the sketchpad. It's about releasing the energy from yourself, the loop in your mind, the stories you tell yourself, and getting them out of you in some physical fashion that has an emotional attachment that you can revisit in real time at any point. It's scary sometimes to go back and look at those things because it's like a ghost did them. And that can be very daunting to people. It can be very frightening to go back and say, I'm going to read something I wrote 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But you don't have to. That's not the point of them. They're not novels. They're not meant for you to sit down and just read them like a book. It's meant for the moment. It's meant for you to get out of yourself in real physical time and space, just to say, there is something in my mind, I'm about to make it a reality. It's got to get on paper. It's got to get in my phone. It's got to do something physical. And I recommend that you actually write it. The phone is great, but it translates to the phone to me physically writing this out, because that's the key, because your phone is not really physical space. It's still in a digital atmosphere. But when you can get something out on paper and you physically are writing it out with your own hand, that is when things start to change. And I can tell you, if you don't have a journal, I really encourage you to look up videos and anything you can find on different types of ways of journaling, because it really does help. It helps in ways where you would never understand. But it's not about just having a journal. You have to be consistent with it. That is the key. It has to be every day, several times a day. I recommend you get something that works for you. Some people have decorative journals. Some people just have their phones. Whatever it is, if there's things that you have, if you have anxiety, if you're depressed, you have PTSD, you have trauma, you've been abused, it helps. It helps in the moment. It helps calm you down. It helps you breathe. It helps you live in the moment. It helps you put things in perspective. It helps you trust yourself. And damn it, it is a brave thing to do, because you're sitting down and you're taking the time to love yourself enough to work on something in that moment, to say, these feelings are overwhelming me. This situation's overwhelming me. This person is overwhelming me. This thing is overwhelming me. I need to do something about it. And journaling is a form of self-love for yourself. It's self-respect for yourself. Your self-worth is all tied up in there, because you're actively saying, I want to do something about what it is in my mind, my heart, my body, my soul that is troubling me. And it doesn't have to be just troubling. I want to do something with my mind, my body, my heart, and soul about something or many things that are going right with me. The journal is not just a diary of solace. It's about putting all types of different emotions in there, the whole range, the whole gamut of human existence, what it means to be human. What are you feeling? If it's something that is looping in your mind, it needs to go in that journal. If it's something that you're feeling passionately, it needs to go in that journal. Because you're making it a reality, and it forces you to be accountable for your thoughts, for how you feel, for how your body feels, how you feel spiritually. It forces you to connect with yourself. It forces you to extend from yourself onto paper, into reality, the best versions of yourself, the worst versions of yourself, the best dreams and the worst nightmares of yourself go into that journal. And it feels amazing. It feels amazing. Because once you do it, it's almost like letting out a good cry. You're like, wow, it felt good to just write that down. And you can fold over that page or highlight it and say, I'm going to revisit this one. And there's some pages where you'll say, I got it out and I never want to read that page again. But it holds us accountable, because we have something we know we're going to have to face. So every decision you make, wow, I just said that. That's definitely going to the journal today. And you don't want those moments every day. So it changes the way you think. Because you don't want to be disingenuous and go to the journal and say, I'm going to omit this one thing that happened today because I want my journal to look pretty. That's not how journals work. You have to be completely open and honest with yourself. And that translation into that journal is going to be something that empowers you. It's going to make you, again, it'll hold you accountable, because you're not going to want to sit down and write down a bunch of stuff you're ashamed of that you did that day. You're not going to want to write down in there that you did something wrong to someone because of whatever reasons you had, that you justified you had for that moment. It holds us accountable. It helps us grow. And it's a wonderful platform of getting your thoughts in check, in order. And essentially, you can see exactly what you need to work on and exactly what you need to prove upon that's actually going pretty well. You can ask yourself questions. You can go back and write in the answers. It's a beautiful resource. It's something that I recommend for everyone. But remember, the journal is just a physical thing that you get thoughts out of. You are the journal. You are the blank journal. And if you can remember that, it helps in ways that I can't explain, and that it's best if you experience it yourself. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up.